Which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English? On April 5, 1977, Kitty Cohn and 150 other disability rights activists entered a San Francisco federal building. After pleading for years to no effect for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation, blink until their demands were addressed. Finally, on April 28th, the legislation was signed. So, a key part of this sentence is that there are two parts to it. The first is this phrase here, after pleading for years to no effect for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. And the second part is this part here, which is from this blank to until their demands were addressed. So, this first phrase here describes the activist, and because of how it's structured, this phrase, the activist must be mentioned right after this phrase here, otherwise they result in a dangling modifier where the noun of the sentence would not be clear. So let's look at the answer choices now. A. Pressure on lawmakers increased when the activists staged a sit-in protest. This is incorrect because, as before, the noun activist must be mentioned right after this phrase, otherwise a dangling modifier would be created and the noun of the sentence would be unclear. So, because pressure on lawmakers is mentioned right after this phrase, there's a dangling modifier that is created. And because of this, the sentence makes little sense grammatically. So A is incorrect. B. A sit-in protest staged by the activists increased pressure on lawmakers. This is incorrect because now this implies that a sit-in protest was pleading for years to no effect for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. And this does not make sense. And as before, the noun activist must be mentioned right after the phrase to make sense grammatically. And because this isn't the case, B is incorrect. C. Lawmakers came under increased pressure when the activists staged a sit-in protest. This is incorrect because lawmakers is mentioned right after the phrase here, and this implies that the lawmakers were pleading for years to no effect for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. And because this doesn't make sense, C is incorrect. D. The activists increased pressure on lawmakers by staging a sit-in protest. This is the correct answer because this properly places the word activist right after the phrase and correctly implies that the activists were pleading for years to no effect for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation. And because of this, D is the correct answer.